Welcome to this edition of Africa Today. Thank you so much for joining us and always being part of us. My name is Nahabe Kajura, but first, other headlines. Two courts decline request to release MPs Segirinya and Sewanyana on bail. Registration for this year's exams ends today, according to UNEB. Senior Libyan officials hold UN-led talks on arrangement for elections. In a sports news today, Uganda boxing team ups preparations for 2022 Commonwealth Games. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We start with one of our top stories. The Court of Appeal and the International Crimes Division of the High Court in Kampala have declined to issue orders to have jailed legislators Mohamed Segirinya for Kawempe North and his Machindi West counterpart Alan Sewanyana released on bail. We have the report.
The duo were arrested last year and charged with several counts of murder, attempted murder, and terrorism in regards the spate of killings by unknown assailants using machetes in Greater Masaka area, in which over 20 people were killed. They were later granted bail by Masaka High Court in September last year, but were unfortunately rearrested shortly after release from prison and fresh murder charges instituted against them. They would later apply for bail before Masaka High Court in regards to the fresh murder charge, but the court declined to grant them bail, prompting them to petition the Court of Appeal over the same. On Wednesday morning, 3 justices of the Court of Appeal, including Cheborian Barishaki, Christopher Izama Madrama, and Eva Luswata, threw out the petition, saying the court doesn't have any jurisdiction to entertain the matter, in which they challenged the High Court decision to deny them bail. The judge therefore noted that the instant case is wrongly before her court. The judge, however, blasted security agencies over the manner the 2 legislators were rearrested from prison, saying that, being members of the parliament, they ought to have been treated with dignity.
Moving on, in our top stories, exam body Uganda National Examinations Board has announced that candidates are left with only 1 day to register for this year's national exams. Now, according to UNEB Executive Director Dan Odong notice on Wednesday, UNEB will not register any candidates for the 2022 examinations after June 30th, 2022. Take a look at the story.
UNEB Executive Director Dan Odong reminded head teachers to ensure that all the potential candidates for this year's national exams at all levels are duly registered and registration fees fully paid. This year's national exams will be conducted between October 14th to November 16th for UCE, November 7th to 9th for PLE, and November 18th to December 9th for USCE. UNEB recently reminded learners that the exams will be based on the newly introduced abridged curriculum released by the National Curriculum Development Center. This will mean that the grading system will also be based on the new curriculum. This means students are graded on a scale of 1, 2, and 3, as all marks are out of a cumulative mark of 20%, whose average at the end of Senior 4 will be sent to UNEB as continuous assessment. The national exams at the end of the year will then add the 20% onto the 80% it will use for assessment in the final exams. In simple terms, the students will work for 20% of the marks during the school assessment, and UNEB exams will only account for 80%.
Moving on, government through the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives has revealed that it is in the process of reviving the Uganda Cooperative Bank, which was closed in 1999. Now, this was revealed by the Minister for Trade, Industry and Cooperatives, Honorable Gume Frederick Ngobi, in a press briefing at Uganda Media Center in Kampala. Take a look at the story.
In his address to the media this morning, Honorable Gume Frederick Ngobi, the Minister of Trade, Industry and Cooperation, said that government recognizes the strong demand for rural cooperative financing, hence intends to form a national joint task force to drive government's support towards the rebuilding of the cooperative bank. The minister said this as he updated the nation on the 100th celebrations for the International Cooperative Day that will take place on Saturday, 2nd July 2022 in Shema Municipality. The minister further implored Ugandans to welcome the parish development model, saying the program is the new service delivery mechanism for improving incomes and welfare of Ugandans at household level. According to Honorable Ngobi, government has initiated a number of policy measures which are not only designed to create an enabling environment for cooperative enterprises to thrive, but also solve the other structural bottlenecks. Minister Ngobi says that government through the Ministry of Trade is committed to compensating all cooperative societies that lost property due to insurgency to enable them stand again.
Thank you so much, reporter. We're taking a quick break. We shall come back with the international news. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. In international news, clashes have been reported at the disputed Al Fashaga border area between Sudanese army and that of Ethiopia following the alleged capture, execution, and public display of bodies of 7 soldiers and a civilian killed over the weekend. Nalugo has the report.
On Tuesday, Sudan said that it had fired heavy artillery and recaptured several of its territories that were being held by the Ethiopian army. According to Asefa Ashege, a senior security official in Ethiopia's Amhara region, Sudan's army fired long-distance artillery from Monday morning until Tuesday afternoon, but nobody was injured. The latest comes as the quarrel over the Al Fashaka, where the northwest of Ethiopia's Amhara region meets Sudan's breadbasket, Gedaref state, which has been settled by Ethiopian farmers for decades, escalated in recent years alongside a diplomatic spat over Ethiopia's construction of a hydropower dam. Addis Ababa has denied the allegations from Sudan of its troops capturing and executing 7 Sudanese soldiers, but it has also insisted and accused Sudan soldiers of encroaching into its territory. Earlier on Tuesday, a group consisting of activists and members of the press gathered in front of the Ethiopian embassy in the capital Khartoum with banners reading "Fashaka belongs to Sudan."
Moving on to senior Libyan officials on Tuesday began talks on constitutional arrangements for elections in the latest UN effort to bridge a gap between the country's rivals. Now, the meeting of Aguila Saleh, the influential parliament speaker, and Khaled al-Meshri, head of the Tripoli-based government Supreme Council of State, has taken place at the UN headquarters in Geneva.
According to the United Nations, the talks will focus on a draft constitutional framework for elections after Libya's rival factions failed to reach an agreement in their last round of talks in the Egyptian capital of Cairo. The criteria for a presidential candidacy were a contentious point in the talks, according to Libyan media. The Tripoli-based council insisted on banning military personnel from running for the country's top post, apparently a move directed at the divisive commander Khalifa Haftar, whose forces are loyal to the East-based administration. Haftar had announced his bid in elections slated for last December, but the vote was not held because of myriad issues, including controversial hopefuls who had announced bids and disputes about election laws. The blockade was largely meant to cut off key state revenues to the incumbent Prime Minister Abdul Hamid Deiba, who has refused to step down even though the vote was not held in December. Now Deiba and another Prime Minister Fathi Bashaga, appointed by the East-based parliament to lead a transitional government, are claiming power.
Now, the trial of 49 military and state security agents prosecuted in a multi-million euro case of corruption, embezzlement, and abuse of power opened on Tuesday in Angola, according to the media. Now, according to the prosecutor's office, this case would have cost more than 52 million euros to the state. We have the report.
Most of the defendants were in office during the reign of former President José Eduardo dos Santos, recently hospitalized in Barcelona. In power for 38 years, the former head of state is accused of having reigned the country for his personal enrichment and that of his family. His predecessor, Joao Lourenço, has launched a massive anti-corruption campaign since his election in 2017. He is a candidate in the next presidential election, scheduled for late August. The hearing opened under tight security in a suburb of the capital, Luanda. The country's courts are too small to accommodate the trial, in which 30 lawyers and 213 witnesses are present, so the case is being tried in a conference center. Large sums of money, including foreign currency, were found hidden in suitcases and boxes during the investigation. According to a member of the opposition, Helder Chihuto, the accused are small fish, the brains still escaping justice. They face between 15 and 20 years in prison.
Away from that, the first celebrities in the history of mankind, the pharaohs, are in the spotlight in the exhibition at the Museum of Civilizations of Europe and the Mediterranean in Marseille, France.
Entitled Pharaoh's Superstars, the presentation covers 5,000 years of history from ancient Egypt to the present day and examines the sources of fame and posterity. The Pharaoh's Superstars exhibition offers a 1,000 meters tour in 3 parts: the memory of the pharaohs in the Pharaohic civilization, their representation until the 18th century, often based on Greek and Roman texts or religious texts, and finally the Champollion Revolution, which changed their vision of ancient Egypt. After being delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the exhibition will finally open in 2022 for the bicentenary. According to Gail Mead, director of the Louvre's Department of Egyptian Antiquities, what makes certain pharaohs extremely famous is often archaeology, the archaeological discoveries that lead to the discovery of the tomb. In 1922, for example, of Tutankhamen in the Valley of the Kings, and the discovery of a funerary treasure with more than several hundreds of gold, for example, and semi-precious stones. Pharaoh's Superstar is open to the public until 17th October.
Well, Africa Today takes a quick break. She'll come back with business, health, and sports. Welcome back from the break. You're still watching TV Africa, the right to know. Talking matters business in Africa today, South Africans are experiencing in the middle of the winter the country's most drastic outages since 2019. Now, the state-owned electricity utility Eskom will implement stage 6 of load shedding between 4 and 10 p.m. on Wednesday. Stage 6 means that power cuts could be increased to 6,000 MW.
South Africans expect to endure on a rotational basis multiple cuts a day, each lasting between 2 and 4 hours, as they try to use electricity sparingly. Persistent electricity disruptions, partly due to the breakdown of power stations, have affected South Africa's economy. This time, the State Enterprises Minister cited ongoing strikes over wages and intimidation of workers willing to attend to their duties as the main reasons behind the current situation. Pravin Gordhan told a media briefing that Eskom is in this position because of the industrial action, which has meant that in many power stations, up to 90% of the staff could not attend to their duties because of intimidation. Eskom's latest statement, the company confirms to the public that load shedding could last until Friday and shall be reduced to stage 4 and 2. South Africans are urged to use electricity sparingly in order to help prevent nationwide blackouts. The public utility insists load shedding is implemented only as a last resort.
In a health news today, growing demand for fish and other seafood is rapidly changing the fishing and aquaculture sector. Now consumption is expected to rise, driven mainly by fast-paced increase in population. Take a look at the story.
The UN Food and Agriculture Organization presented at the Oceans Conference in Lisbon on Wednesday the latest report on the fisheries sector and outlined a relatively optimistic scenario. According to Manuel Barrange, the director of the Fisheries and Aquaculture Division at FAO, the bigger fish stocks are better managed and improving their sustainability very obviously over the last decade, while the smallest stocks in more isolated places, perhaps with no management systems in place, they are deteriorating. Margaret Nakato, Katosi Women Development Trust Uganda, explained that such an ambition was more difficult to achieve in less wealthy countries in which fisheries operate on a smaller scale. Margaret Nakato added that any sustainability agenda has to take into consideration and has to put small-scale fishing communities at the center of conservation, and it needs to take into consideration the social, cultural, and economic components of these fishing communities so that their measures are effective. The UN believes that the growth of fisheries and aquaculture is vital to ending global hunger and malnutrition, but greater regulation and transformation are needed in the sector so that resources are not depleted in the oceans.
In a sports news today, the Uganda national boxing team, the Bombers, have intensified their preparations for the 2022 Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, United Kingdom. Now, the Bombers will intensify their skills at Forest Park, Buloba, during the residential camp.
The national boxing team entered a residential camp at Forest Park in Buloba to sharpen up their bodies for the games slated to start on 27th July until 7th August 2022. This team has one female, Teddy Nachimuli, and 5 males, team captain Joshua Tukamuhebwa, Isaac Zebra Senyange Jr., Jonah Chove, Owen Chibira, and Yusuf Nkobeza. All these players were selected from the ongoing Uganda Boxing Champions League that recently got a sponsorship boost from Sting brand, a product of Crown Beverages Limited. There are 3 coaches handling the team in Patrick Lihanda, Lawrence. There are 3 coaches handling the team in Patrick Lihanda, Lawrence Kalyango, and Abdul Tebazalwa. Uganda Boxing Federation President Moses Muhanchi confirmed that the team is in Buloba and in great shape. Uganda eyes medals at the Commonwealth Games in all the 11 disciplines that will be fielded. Besides boxing, Uganda will also be ably represented in squash, athletics and netball, table tennis for females only, cycling, swimming, weightlifting, rugby and badminton. Uganda has won a total of 34 Olympic medals overall, 8 gold, 10 silver and 16 bronze.
Thank you so much for being a loyal audience from where we started from. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We should keep updating you. It is TV Africa, the right to know.